Welcome back to Thriving in Love podcast, the podcast that challenges traditional norms so couples can create thriving relationships that work for their authentic selves. I'm your host, Sana Akant. I am an intuitive love coach, a speaker, and a writer, and I help couples break patterns, reignite the spark in their relationships, and deepen their intimacy together. Today's episode is so crucial for any healthy relationship, whether it's romantic or platonic or at work or what have you. And today's topic is all about emotional maturity. Let's dive in. So before we get started, let's talk about what emotional maturity is. I'm going to read this real quick. At its core, emotional maturity is the ability to understand, manage, and express your emotions in a healthy and constructive way. It's about taking responsibility for your feelings and responses rather than reacting impulsively. So the core of the work that I do with my couples is helping people learn and cultivate emotional intelligence. And one of those ways is understanding emotional maturity. The 3 reasons why emotional maturity is so incredibly important for healthy relationships is because 1 is you learn how to handle conflict without being defensive, and you learn how to express your thoughts and feelings in a constructive way. You also don't take things personally when your partner comes to you to express their emotions. If you are not used to processing your own emotions, you may get really triggered by other people's emotions and get defensive. This is very normal and common for a lot of men, and that's why therapy is so incredibly important, because it allows you to have a safe space to begin the work of emotional regulation. A lot of men do not have safe spaces to process their emotions, to express their emotions, and a lot of them have been conditioned for so incredibly long to put away their emotions, that they think that expressing their emotions is weak. So when they see their partner expressing their emotions, they see that as weak, or they get defensive and they start to really disconnect from the partner. A big sign of emotional maturity is when your partner is open and is able to hold a safe space for you while you are expressing your emotions. But at the same time, women, if they are emotionally immature, a lot of times they overreact and they are not able to communicate clearly what their thoughts and feelings are. So it really is a double-edged sword. And I know I'm really generalizing with this men and women thing. This is just what I see more often in my relationships. And for the sake of this podcast, I will say that there are some people, usually if you have an avoidant attachment style, you avoid emotions. And if you have an anxious attachment style, you over communicate your emotions. So the goal in emotional maturity is to try to find that center and secure attachment style. And a lot of the work of emotional regulation, emotional intelligence, emotional maturity will help you to become securely. When you're avoidant or anxious, it's actually kind of hard for you to have empathy for others, because when you're avoidant, you're really independent, thinking about yourself. When you're anxious, you're actually really thinking about yourself too. So empathy is a skill that I teach my clients in order for them to detach their emotion from the moment and observe what is actually happening and try to put themselves in their partner's shoes, not neglect their own feelings, but for a moment, try to see the partner's point of view. And that really helps expand your awareness to see the reality of the situation. If you're anxious, it helps to take you out of that anxious spiral and kind of helps recenter yourself. And if you're avoidant, it helps you to open those walls and put down the defense mechanism so that you can understand your partner. So empathy is a huge benefit of emotional maturity and really helps 2 people connect deeper with each other. And lastly, stress management is a huge benefit of emotional maturity. I don't know about you guys, but I remember when I was in corporate America and I was burnt out and I was exhausted and I was having a really hard time at work, I would bring that home. to my husband, and I would react quickly. I would just be irritable. I would not be a pleasant person to be around. And if I knew these emotional regulation practices then, I would have set boundaries and said, hey, as soon as I come home from a stressful day at work, I just need 30 minutes to decompress. Maybe I'm gonna take a shower, a bath, read a book, and just really detach my work life from my home life. My home is supposed to be a safe haven, and it's supposed to be a place where I don't need to be defensive. I can let down my guards and soften and wash away the stress of work. Emotional maturity will help you understand that when you are stressed at work, how to set those boundaries at home so that you're not sabotaging your relationship, and instead you're being preemptively considerate of your own emotional level. Sometimes we're not going to be 100%, and our partner's not going to be 100%, but it is crucial to communicate that with each other in an open and honest way so that that stress doesn't pour onto the other person. Or at least if it does, your partner will understand and hopefully not take it as personally because you were able to communicate that beforehand, that, hey, I had a really stressful day. So if you do become irritable that day, you can say, I'm sorry, I know I'm being irritable. And your partner can say, it's okay because you told me that this might happen. So instead of being like, whoa, what the heck just happened? They'll be a bit more prepared for it to happen. So I kind of do this a lot during the full moon. So I know that during full moon season, my emotions are going to be heightened because I'm very connected to the moon cycles. So during the full moon, I know that even if everything's going fine in my life, something subconsciously is going to stir up because it is a moment of letting go of what is no longer serving us. So we get triggered so that our subconscious thoughts and feelings can come up to the surface, and it is an invitation for us to either face it head on or put it back into our subconscious. I now know that if anything comes up, I'm facing it head on. I am not letting anything fester because I do not want to hold trauma in my body anymore. I want my body to be a safe space for myself, for my inner child, for the person that I want to be and who I am becoming. Honestly, I don't even need to tell my husband anymore. He understands cycles and he understands my cycles. The full moon actually is like synchronized with my flow. So he knows when I'm about to have an emotional ride through my journey. So it's amazing. The communication really helps. And I'm telling you guys that the more you work on this work of emotional maturity and regulation and understanding yourself and your emotions and the way that you work and the way the cosmos work, it makes your relationship so much easier and so much better because you're both just in sync and it's magical. And lastly, the biggest benefit of emotional maturity is personal growth. You take full accountability for your part of your emotions and you're able to communicate that with your partner. You're open to self-reflection. You're open to self-improvement, which not only benefits your relationship, but your overall well-being. You just become a more pleasant person to be around. You're open to feedback. Instead of being defensive, you are open to constructive criticism and you get curious instead of defensive. So here are 5 ways that you can actually become more emotionally mature. The first one is self-awareness. The most important thing is being aware when we are triggered, aware of when we are feeling heavy or stressed out, so that you can detach from the reaction and begin to get curious about where your emotions are coming from. Number 2 is take responsibility. Take responsibility for the way you are reacting, if you did react, and forgiving yourself for that reaction and allowing yourself to apologize and say, hey, I'm sorry, I think I need to go process my emotions. Number 3 is empathy. Empathy is huge so that we get out of our little bubble and put ourselves in other people's shoes and think about things from a view other than our own. Even if we disagree, it allows us to just broaden our mind a little more. Number 4 is effective communication. Instead of saying, you made me feel like this, or you did this and that, use I statements. Say, I feel like this and I need this, and just come to it from a place of vulnerability versus blame. And it can really help you begin your journey of emotional maturity. And lastly, mindfulness and self-care. I cannot begin to tell you how important my journaling and my meditation and my baths have been for me to process my own emotions, and knowing that, okay, I am going through a lot right now, so let me hop into a bath and process all of my shit so that I don't linger and hold on to all of these things. Everyone thinks that nervous system work right now is so trendy, but it actually is so real, and it is so important for us to know exactly how to regulate our emotions, how to process our emotions, and how to connect with our bodies so that we listen to our body and we understand when we need a little extra self-care, a little extra mindfulness practices, and when we are needing a little extra solitude versus, okay, I'm ready to be out in the world. But then if you're not doing any emotional regulation, then you can get easily triggered, and it could just be a really hard time for you out in the world. But when you are become a pro at emotional regulation, it makes it so much easier to connect with others, even if you disagree, even if things don't go perfectly. And instead of fearing things not going perfectly, you end up trusting yourself that you can handle it if things went sour. Emotional maturity really helps with cultivating healthy relationships because you create a really safe space in your home for both of you to express yourselves vulnerably, openly, and honestly without thinking that the other person's going to get defensive or hypersensitive and big emotional outbursts. When you practice emotional maturity, that is how you come to center and become that securely attached person and create a beautiful, harmonious environment for your relationship to thrive. It really does pave the way for conflict resolution, deeper intimacy, and just a deeper sense of connection, not only with your partner, but yourself. Like, you end up having this really beautiful relationship with your authentic self, your inner child, your wants and needs, your own desires. And it really is a practice that I do every day to learn more and more about myself so that I can be more and more of my authentic self in my relationship. A couple things that I do to connect with myself and my emotions are journaling, where I'll put a timer on the clock, 10 minutes, and just put pen to paper, and whatever wants to come out will come out. And it is a really good tool for me to unlock my subconscious and get to the root of what I'm feeling in the moment. And a lot of times we're just so busy in the rat race and the hamster wheel of life that we don't realize how much we're actually holding on to inside. So every single day, this is a non-negotiable for me, 10 minutes a day to just let out whatever wants to come out. And then I process that for another 10 minutes. And I'll realize, okay, this is how I'm feeling. This is what's going on with me right now. This is important to me. I create that relationship with myself that is important. Like, I am important to me. My emotions are important to me. My inner thoughts and feelings are important to me. And if I'm not doing that for myself, I cannot expect someone else to do that for me, because however we feel with ourselves and our internal reality is what is reflected back to us in our external reality. So the way that you love yourself will be reflected back to you. So if you're not taking that time out to have 10 minutes a day to just connect with yourself, then you can't expect your partner to do it either. They may do it, and that's great. But at the same time, the more you abandon your own subconscious, the more festers inside of you, and the more you'll be reactive versus emotionally mature and knowing yourself and knowing your connections. In order to be a woman that is in her divine feminine power, it is imperative for you to take out time to connect with your inner world. And that is the point of the divine feminine. Feminine energy is our body. You cannot claim to be a feminine or like a divine feminine or in her feminine power if you're disconnected from your emotions, if you're disconnected from your body, if you're disconnected from your inner child, if you're disconnected from your higher self. All of that happens in here, inside of you, inside your heart, inside your gut, inside of your body. if you are operating a lot in your self-awareness and in your mind, and you're like, I know exactly why I am the way I am, but you're still repeating patterns and repeating triggers, that means you're still operating in your masculine energy. A lot of women think that they are operating in their feminine energy when in reality, they are just so aware of who they are, why they are, and instead they're not tapping into their subconscious and actually getting to the root of why they are the way they are so that they can actually alchemize that into divinity and power. So I hope that's helpful. I hope this is clear for you guys that emotional maturity is the foundation of a happy and healthy relationship. And if you need help with emotional regulation, please send me an email or a message on Instagram. Let's chat, because nervous system regulation work is crucial if you want to thrive in happy and healthy relationships. If you like this episode, please hit like and subscribe and comment. I am so thankful that you're here. I also started a Medium page where I just write my musings of an awakened woman. It is a place for me to just pour my heart and soul out in my writing. So I hope you'll follow me on Medium. It is Sana Akand, my full name. I will link it below as well. If you're interested in a coaching call, I do offer complimentary coaching calls to make sure that we're both a good fit before we commit to each other. So book a free coaching call. Let's get you guys on the path of union and harmony and peace and joy so you can thrive in love. See you guys next week.